Come on now, here we go. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles live. I'm here on very little sleep. We had the big show in the park yesterday. It was fantastic. And I didn't sleep much, but that's okay. I do my best work when I'm sleep deprived, you know. It was great. You know what? I'm not here to cha-cha around with you today, honestly. So I'm going to, let's jump right into it. Let's bring Steven on. What's up?
What's up?
I'm not here to fuck around today, bro.
Got no time to mess around.
I know you're here to fuck around. I'm not.
I got to tell you, great. I feel like I haven't seen anybody because I missed the last episode. I was at the Black and Blue. So I got to shout out Robert Hogg. It was great to see Rob came all the way from Scotland.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun. But yesterday was a blast in the park, man. What a fun day.
Let's show some pictures. So I want to say this. Not only is this photo of the day, but this conceivably this could be photo of the year that I'm about to put up here. This was one of the most incredible moments I've ever had in Tompkins Square Park. You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, photo of the year. Now, let me tell you what's going on here. This was absolutely fucking incredible, right? Get a load of this, all right? So I'm on stage. I don't know. We weren't playing, were we? Were we playing?
You were just about to go on.
No.
Wait, some of us. No, it was the non-residents were about to go on.
Okay, so we finished playing, right? And the park is filled with people, right? The park's filled with people. We just played, and it was friggin' great. I mean, it's probably 400 or 500 people out there in the park. And I look out there, and right in the mosh pit, as kids are still, flopping around, right in the middle of the mosh pit, and this is some New York shit. This guy is selling ices right from his street cart, right in the mosh pit. And I'm like, I'm on the stage, and I go, yo, is this guy selling ices in the middle of the fucking mosh pit? It was fucking awesome. It was
the
so
Iceman
great.
cometh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, here's the other one. And then it was great. I called him out, and it was that kind of a party. Here it is again. This guy's right in front of the stage earning $1, man.
The face says it all.
Yeah.
And he did old school. He was carving the block of ice himself. That was like
our guests today from the Bronx, they're gonna know about this.
That's old school, right?
This is some real New York shit, right? Listen, I'm sure it's not It is. It was hardcore, Hegs. This dude was scraping the ice as fast as he could, and in the other picture, I love how standing right up, ready to get one is on the right is Nate from Winterwolf and Maafa. There's Nate on the right.
Yeah.
And there's homegirl from Foul Pride at 12 o'clock. So Shea Vice, yeah. Yeah. It was great. So that said, a couple of pictures from yesterday. Let's see what we got. So like here's some perspective on what I was talking about, because here's a shot. This is when we were playing, right? So this is what the park looked like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a bunch of people in the park. So
sure.
So as soon as we were done, this guy's right in the middle. It was awesome. It was really funny. And so here's a couple shots. Let me see what we got here. Okay. You know what? So first band to play was Redwoods, right? And these teenagers really, really are great. They bring it. These guys brought it,
Teenage energy for sure,
Yeah, like young teenagers. And if you don't know, the drummer in Redwoods is Danny Schuler from Biohazard's son, Colton Schuler. So that's Colton. That's Colton, who plays a lot like his dad.
That's good teacher to have,
I know you're being sarcastic, Lenny, about the bass being too low during Redwood. Hey, Jimmy Ferrari, what's up?
Good to see Jimmy there yesterday too with his daughter.
No, Jimmy comes out now all of a sudden. He's trying to get, Jimmy's trying to get back in the game, You'd have to come to more than just one show there, Skipper. You want to try to get back in this game.
Rampage Fest.
And then these guys played, and of course, the front man for Winterwolf is just a super duper star, man.
Those guys, they have this sound that they just lay down, and it was interesting. They have two basses, and the second bass, the man that plays second bass, was actually delayed on the train. So they did the first half of the show, and he just appeared for the second half.
He showed up, pulled his bass out of the bag in mid song, got up there, plugged in, and was like, it was great.
Yeah, no, I love the whole just two basses, no guitars. They got a whole atmosphere going on.
Yeah, he plays that. What is that? A 6-string bass. He plays that 6-string bass like a lead guitar. Is basically what's happening there. And what else? I got a bunch. Where's my shot of? Here he is. Cartel were great. Yeah. Cartel was great. They were fantastic. Yeah.
He's actually wearing Chris Flash's helmet there.
And speaking of this guy, if you don't know, this is the guy this is like the unsung hero of all these shows that we do in Tompkins Square Park. This is Chris Flash. He's pretty much one of the last of the old school Lower East Side brick throwers. And he goes and he fucking deals with the city, and he gets the permits, and he has the stage, and we build the stage. Listen, let's be frank here. The show was great in the park. The show was free in the park. But it wasn't free to Chris Flash, me, or Larry Kelly. It cost each one of us a couple $100 to do that show in the park yesterday. But that's okay. That is fine. We love doing it. We live for it. It's great. But Chris Flash is the dude. He's the guy that makes the whole thing happen. You know? Yeah, Cartel was great, Michelle. Absolutely. So yeah. So and then of course these guys headlined. These guys were friggin' great. The non-residents. Non-residents, man, they really made an event of it, man. These guys really made an event of it.
Yeah, they bring everything they can. They brought the smoke bombs out. They brought the big giant head. I mean, they're really so much fun. They have, they have their own thing, and it's so heavy.
Let me tell you, just going back to the very physical, getting the stage platforms are very heavy, and like you drop one on you, or if it falls on you, you're gonna get hurt. They're very heavy, and there's 3, 6, 9. Is it 9 of them? No, there's wait. 3, 3, I think it's 9 of them. Why do I think that there's more? But there's 9 of them, and they're down in Chris Flash's basement. And you got to go in the Lower Side. You got to go through his hallway into the backyard, down these stairs, and get it. And carry it up the stairs through this hallway. And one false move, and you're hospitalized, right? And the one dude that you definitely want to be carrying the thing with you is Roberto.
Oh my God!
The drummer for non-residents.
Yeah, I mean these guys, they literally have their own moving company. I mean, who better to pick things up and put them down?
If I had 6 Robertos, bro, I'd fucking take over the world, bro. Seriously, if I had 6 Robertos, it would be a dictatorship. Like I'd rule the planet Earth, like Doctor Doom. I'd be like Doctor Doom in the X-Men.
Yeah, and the best part is that he's like the sweetest guy. So,
your word, yeah, I would just straight up,
yeah,
I'd be like, forget it. You'd be like, what happened? Drew Stone. Yeah, and like here's Nate, and that's behind Nate. That's Maggot, and she comes to all the shows, and she's awesome. And it was such a great eclectic crowd. Yeah, that's it. New band name. That's it. New band name.
6 Robertos.
We're 6 Robertos. That's a good one. 6 Robertos.
Cinco. And it was good to see Sean's sister was there yesterday too.
You took that picture, yeah. Here's me and my big mouth right here. me and my big. Hey, Scott Earth, what's up? Thanks for coming. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And it was everybody brought it yesterday. Everybody played great. Really, just a really, we couldn't have had better weather too, because
I can't tell you one thing that could have been better. I mean it. Not one fucking thing could have been better. The weather was beautiful. People fucking showed up. Chris and Steve Gallo to help build the stage, and just we got help to get the stage out and get it back. The generator didn't break down. The PA was on time. Fucking Vlad from Organic Grill.
Yeah.
Fucking Vlad from Organic Grill. Like everybody.
Was that a new PA?
It was a new PA.
Nice.
We paid for it. That's what we did this time. Like we spent some money, and we paid Eddie the sound man from the Bowery Electric.
Yeah.
Because he's our fucking dude. And we paid and got like a really good PA. And we paid for it.
Yeah. You know what? You get what you pay for. It really did.
Listen, you know what? You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So there you go. Yep. The pit chair. There was the pit chair.
Yes, that's right. There was a white office chair.
Yep. It was great. What's up, Eddie in Vegas? Yes, Whiplash was called the three Tonys: Tony, Tony, and Tony. Yep. What's up? We are the six Robertos. or how about like the Roberto Army of One, Roberto Army of One.
Or instead of the Jackson 5, you could be the Roberto 6.
No, it would be like the Ramones, like the Robertos.
So you'll be Drew Roberto, Sean Roberto.
No, I'd be Roberto Stone.
Oh, I see.
We're the Robertos. Hey, is that right? Did your new release come out today?
Yes. As a matter of fact, Friday, this past Friday, For the Herd, it's 3 songs. And we actually had recorded 2 new songs. And then to celebrate our 30th year, which we're having right now, we decided to re-record a song from our very first demo back in '94, which is the 3rd track on the record. So I think it sounds great. It's available on all digital platforms. Spotify.
Is it just this one song?
What's that?
Is it just the one song?
No, it's 3 songs.
It's 3 songs.
It's 3 songs. And it really, super proud of it. I think it's, just really sounds big, and, give it a listen. I love it. I mean, I'm just so happy with it. And, now that the record's out, we'll hopefully get some shows going soon. And it really does. It really sounded great. And I will tell you, the second song on the record is a bit of a tribute to these last 7 years of the stuff we've been doing here. So
is that right? What are you getting nostalgic?
Let's just say it's an homage. So
listen, bro, with the words, with the oh, it's an homage. What are you, fucking Prince? What am I dealing with here? It's an homage to the. You know what I want to hear? You fucking stabbed me in the back. I trusted you.
Actually, yesterday when the Redwoods, he said, this next song is called.
Yeah, I saw that was funny. All right.
Repeated it. He said, in case you didn't hear that.
Yeah, I trusted you. You stabbed me in the back.
How could you do this to me?
You're fucking. You're fake. It's a homage.
Listen.
One word, homage. All right, bro.
On that note,
listen, why don't you go pay homage to somebody, eh? I trusted you.
Actually, I'm heading to the Paramount tonight for Frank Turner. So, pretty psyched about that.
You need to stop swinging on. You get off the Frank Turner Bozak, bro.
Hey, listen. I like my bands. I like who I like.
I know. What could I say, right? Hey, we're going to see, me and the female unit are going to see the Furioso Mad Max movie tomorrow.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm going to probably go to Mars myself. So I'm pretty psyched about that one. So
when are we going to see? Don't worry. We're going.
Is she up? Has she seen any of the other ones?
She's just down for whatever, bro. It's like, we're going to see fucking Planet of the Apes. Okay.
That's it. That's how you know you got the right girl right there.
That's why I'm going to marry this broad, man. She's like down to go to see the Planet of the Apes movie with me.
She's going to be Rose Stone.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Take care. And out. There you have it. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. And we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, Upstate Records, and the Texas Silver Rush. They're a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as the style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. The client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rolle, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, www.texassilverrush.com. Let's clear the deck. let's bring our guests on. Let's see. Cinemart in Brooklyn. What is that? What's Cinemart in Brooklyn? Is that a theater? Everything else seems okay. All right, let's clear the deck. What the heck? Here we go. Here today to talk to us about their musical journeys and the history of the infamous Castle Heights Club in Queens. Please welcome, from Billy Club Sandwich, coming at us from the Bronx, Mr. Gary Muttley, and from Irate, coming at us from the Garden State of New Jersey, but hailing from the Bronx, Mr. Phil Vibez. Fellas,
what's going on, Drew?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Let me arrange the way I like it like this. There you go.
Drew, I gotta tell you, and Phil will back this up. That picture before, the shaved ice.
Yeah.
That's an old New York thing, but as Phil will agree, that's definitely a very Bronx thing.
That's a Bronx at 2:30 when you get out of school thing.
Yes.
And they're ready to greet you. Oh yeah.
Yeah, here, I got it right here. I'm going to put it up again just because it was such a great moment. Like Tompkins Square Park, fucking New York, man. You know, beautiful day. And I'm ready to announce these guys. And right in the middle of the pit is this. So right in the middle of the pit. And you know, this guy's working it. Like, you know, when all of a sudden, when these guys have like 2 or 3 people backed up, he's frantically shaving the
I'm pretty sure I saw a couple of those guys on Fordham Road yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just pure colored sugar water. That's it.
That's all it is. But a children's delight, that is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oliver says, Muttley, I love your background. Is that a Mike Gallo original?
The Muttley down there is definitely a Mike Gallo original. It was a gift from Martin from Billy Club for my birthday a couple of years ago. And then the Death Star banner behind me and the Empire Strikes Back poster. I'm a big Star Wars guy, in case you can't figure that out.
Yep. And Phil, and is that your figurine collection behind you?
It is my prized horror collection. I've been collecting these things for probably 30 years. And most of them, the majority of them, are signed by the people who played these great killers. So very proud collection. Something I'm honored to have, and I love collecting, so it never gets old.
And I know you frequent a lot of these sort of conventions like Chiller and
Monstermania, Connecticut HorrorCon, all of those. I've gone to ones in Texas on the West Side too. So yeah, always a fun time.
Yeah, I like those are my 2 favorite. Here you go. I love Monstermania is good, and I love Chiller. But let's chop it up a little bit. Now we're gonna like our theme today really is centered around the history of Castle Heights, and we're gonna make our way. We'll make our way to Castle Heights and talk a little bit about the history and your guys' personal history with the club. But let's get a little background. Gary, let's start with you. How did you come up? Where'd you grow up? And just musically, how did things get going for you?
So I grew up and I still live in the Morris Park section of the Bronx. Italian neighborhood, one of those places where somebody hears the Bronx and wait, this isn't the hood. But my father always used to play a lot of records, a lot of Spanish records, a lot of jazz records. My older brother was a musician and used to play in cover bands. He used to play like Judas Priest and the Police and all kinds of stuff. When my grandmother was alive, she actually had a picture of him wearing like a Rob Halford type of leather hat that she kept in her living room. Which is funny because here's my grandmother, 90 years old, with basically my brother trying to look like Rob Halford. And when I was really young, my brother that's how he met his wife, because his wife's brother was also a musician and they used to play in bands together. And hearing the stories from them, and like they had another cousin that played drums in bands also. I was hearing these stories about Richie Blackmore and people like that, and that kind of started in my head because I was already into music anyway, but I was starting to get into more like metal and stuff. So over time, like that started the interest in me wanting to play. So I started playing guitar. Originally, my brother was gonna be the guitar player, and I wanted to play drums, and then we switched. And then I started playing his guitar more. He started playing drums more, and then we were just messing around. And there was like a local music store that had a rehearsal room in the back. We used to mess around there. So I started playing in bands, and eventually started performing live. Started playing in like rock bands first, like Faith No More type of rock bands, and then over time, from high school, I had started to discover hardcore and start going to hardcore shows. So eventually I started playing in hardcore bands, back in the Bond Street Cafe days. And that's how I got to know a lot of people. Go ahead.
What was the first like hardcore stuff that came into your orbit that you felt connected to? Like how did the hardcore thing, how'd you get into the hardcore thing? Like initially?
So when I was in high school, and I went to Bronx Science, I know we're going to talk about that later. And what's up to G-Man, by the way?
Yeah. Shouting out Gary Sullivan. We're definitely going to talk about high school because all three of us went to high school in the Bronx.
Yes. Some great stories there.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, this was the late 80s, everybody was trading tapes. And I was really into metal, and that's also how I got into some rap stuff also. Like somebody gave me a tape with Fates Warning on one side and Straight Outta Compton on the other side. Yeah. And I started getting into stuff through that. And then working its way into like the tape trading stuff was like Carnivore, Agnostic Front, Leeway, the Cro-Mags, so DRI, like a lot of the crossover stuff. And that started working its way into the tape trading, and then from there I just started getting more into that.
What was the first live hardcore shit that you saw?
The first hardcore show that I went to was called The Last Thrash Bash. It was at L'Amour's in, I think it was May of '91.
Hold on.
One of a few times that L'Amour's closed.
Yep.
And that was my first hardcore show. It was you probably got the flyer floating around somewhere.
I'm looking for it.
Yeah. It was White Zombie before Sexorcisto, so people didn't know, they were just a local New York band, and their whole stage show was really just Christmas lights on their amps.
Boom.
Who else?
Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
So Reunion, Leeway, Prong.
Prong did not play.
Typo Negative, formerly Repulsion.
Yeah, this is their first show as Typo.
Metal Storm, was that Metal Storm that was Rob? Is that the band that Rob?
It might have been. I think Rob was playing with them. I never asked him if he played this show because you see how they teased the surprise guest. They never had a surprise guest. Prong didn't play. All the other bands on the flyer played. And then at the very end of the show, at like 2:30 in the morning, after teasing the surprise guest all night, if I remember right, they threw Metal Storm on, and everybody was like, "Ah!"
That's a typical L'Amour movie.
I was just gonna say that was a very L'Amour thing from what I learned later.
Hey, I gotta shout out May.
Oh, May, I love May.
May.
I gotta say, May, I'm so happy to see you, May. May was a big part of when this show started. She was a big part of when we first got going. She's been busy with work and we haven't seen her in the chat room in about 2 years. Good to see you, May. It really put a smile on my face. You know.
Seriously, May, what's up, man?
Yes. What's up, May? Glad to see you in here. Glad you're watching.
And I love both these fellas, so I couldn't miss this one.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but So
back to L'Amour's.
Back to L'Amour's and back to that sort of crossover era, right? When all that shit was popping off.
Yeah.
And then go on.
And then I just started going like, that first hardcore show I was doing college radio, and one of the guys that was working at college radio was like a skinhead guy. And he's like, yo, I'm going to the show. You guys should come with me. And then from there, I just kept going. Like it was going to different hardcore shows, and then like hanging out with some of the people that I hung out with. We started going like we went to the Agnostic Front at the Palladium, the Riot show.
Sure. Hold on. Keep going.
We were at Wetlands. The Bond Street Cafe was doing hardcore shows, so I started going there. I spent a lot of time there. I was working at Tower Records, so I used to go. I would take lunch from Tower Records, go to Bond Street, watch a band, go back to work, and then come back after I was done working.
Wow.
So I was just fully jumped into it, like all over. Yep. That was the show.
The show that ended
Nuclear Assault, Leeway. Yep. Yeah, that was a crazy show.
Paulie says, I was also at the Palladium Riot. So there you go. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so I just started from there. I started going to a lot of hardcore shows, mostly in the city because I was already working in the city. So like even on the days when I wasn't working, I was down in the village, like hanging around, and also got to meet a lot of hardcore people in the Bronx, District 9, the Fahrenheit guys, eventually Phil and the Irate guys down the line. And I knew the Billy Club guys, Martin and Glenn, I knew from like the very early 90s before Billy Club even existed, because we were going to hardcore shows. I met those guys. There was a whole crew of kids from the Bronx that would take the train and go to every hardcore and metal show. So like shows at Roseland, like Pantera and stuff.
Right.
You're on the train, you see a kid wearing like a Slayer shirt or something like that. It's like, oh, you're going to the show. And then all of a sudden from that, like, that's where I met the Go to Mentis guys and like a lot of these other bands and like people that were in the scene. Suddenly we're rolling from the Bronx, like 20 deep on the train going to a show. And like, that was our crew.
Yeah.
And they started doing stuff in the Bronx also. Like a couple of the guys worked at Bronin's on Webster Avenue, so people were hanging out there. So that was how I got into hardcore, and then how the Bronx kind of tied into it, and eventually I joined Billy Club and met the Irate guys and started doing a lot of other stuff with other bands.
Got it. And now I'm gonna try to weave, Phil, your story. How did you come up, and how did music play into your life, and take us up to speed to kind of like where Gary said the guys from there's a scene in the Bronx. Sure. Go ahead.
So my journey, I guess, started when I was a young kid. I'm gonna go elementary school into junior high school, where I discovered GNR. That was the first rock band I discovered, and it was randomly on the radio. Heard Paradise City and fucking changed my life. I was like, what is this? Because up until then, I was mired in fucking hip hop. I'm a hood kid. I'm in one of the ghettoest neighborhoods in the world, in Morris and Kingsbridge. So that was the soundtrack. It was either salsa, merengue, or hip hop, or freestyle, because you had freestyle was exploding back in the days. And if you're in a Puerto Rican Latino neighborhood, that was definitely in the air. So, ventured, once I discovered GNR, I just started to kind of talk to kids that I saw wearing metal shirts or leather jackets with metal tees and whatnot, trying to, learn more about it. So when I discovered, or I was shown Metallica and heard Injustice for All for the first time, that changed my life. Like, I decided when I first heard that album, this is what I want to do. I want to see the world. I want to fucking rock hard. I want to do everything these guys are doing. And how do I make that happen? So, I just started to network. I met my very best friend in the whole world, Fernando Sierra, aka the great Nando Red Rum from Irate, in school. And we started hanging, and we started to, after a while, we started to get like-minded people in our crew, and just hang out with the metalheads in school. And I went to 3 high schools, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I hung out with heads in each school. That was my thing. And we just, we rolled hard together, because back then you were looked at funny, man. Like, nobody really fucked with us, but you got the looks like, oh, look at these weirdos and their little crew and all that. And you had to work through some rough neighborhoods, rocking our leather and rocking our shit. But we're still Bronx heads, so if people stepped up, they were going to get us a nice surprise. So we were ready for it, but it wasn't really like that too much. Got the high school crew going and just started hanging. And then I started going to Bronin's music and meeting Loki from District 9, eventually District 9.
Bronin's music was a musical instrument?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Frankie,
Where was that?
I was in Webster Avenue, right off Fordham in the Bronx.
I could see that, yeah.
Right there, bro.
Right. Still exists.
Wow. Yeah, and
believe it or not.
It is still there. So that's where I met Frankie Fahrenheit, Joe Rampage, a staple of the Bronx, this guy, Joe Rampage, Loki, District 9, and a bunch of other people. And then
a bunch of those guys all worked there.
Yeah, they all worked there. That's why we met them there. And they were cool about, helping us get instruments and all that stuff and learning our crafts. So, like, we all just came up together. And, Fahrenheit and District 9 were a few years ahead of Irate and Billy Club, but we weren't far behind. And, once we came out, we caught up. And the Bronx became a force. Yeah. And we just started, that's when I met Gary. That's when I met Glenn. And Martin I had known from high school and whatnot. But, that's when, we just started seeing each other at shows, familiarizing ourselves. Oh, that's that dude from the Boogie, and, what's up, what's the deal? And just, hustling our products. And eventually Irate formed.
Well, let me ask you, what was the first, in lack of a better term, hardcore like show that you went to and like saw?
Yeah, so I like telling this story a lot. My first hardcore experience with hardcore was a local show on Tremont Avenue in the Bronx, and it was called Metal Madness. I can't tell you what year it was, but it had to be early 90s. And it was Rampage, Close Call, which was District 9 later on, Without a Cause, which had some guys from Fahrenheit, and this guy that I knew, Tony, had a band called Morbidon, and they were, a death metal band. So it was a mixed bill, but it was mostly hardcore with like one death metal band. And that shit opened my eyes, because I'd never been exposed to like hardcore dancing up until that point. And I see all these windmills, these 360 kicks, and I was just like, what? I need to be doing that. I just threw myself in that shit and learned the hard way, and just started doing that all the time. Started going to CB, started going to Wetlands, started going to Coney Island High, like L'Amour's, all the local venues in New York City at the time, just soaking it all in, absorbing, learning. And, there was a rich plethora of death metal, hardcore, thrashers at the time. So you got it all, man. And
so did you and Gary, did you guys like click up in the Bronx and come down into the city?
Not until after we met, but that was later. Like Irate already started Billy Club when we met. But I knew Martin back in the day. So Martin and I used to roll shows.
I see. Right.
And stuff like that. And my old guitarist Nando. So that's how it started.
You know what's interesting, and we've talked about this. I went to Kennedy High School. Phil, I know you went to Kennedy for a bit. Gary, you are a Bronx guy through and through. I have deep family roots in the Bronx. My dad grew up in the Bronx and went to Taft High School. And one thing, talk about going in Kennedy High School, which is really interesting, and I've mentioned this before, is like a lot of the kids that I hung out with, black, white, Puerto Rican, were into like Southern rock. It was like music was eclectic back then. It was like, and I'm a little bit older than you guys, but like I'm bringing it up because Phil, you mentioned like, Hispanic guys up in the Bronx getting into metal.
Yeah.
And Gary,
Oh, yeah.
your brother, getting into Judas Priest. It's like, it was interesting how a lot of metal and Southern rock, music was all over the place, man, up there.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, Martin Billy Club has told stories because he grew up in the projects in the South
Right.
Bronx, and he's told stories about like he used to have a leather jacket with Sepultura written on it, and he had long hair, and he used to get a lot of shit walking around in the projects, and it's like he didn't care. And a lot of the kids that we rolled with that would come down from the Bronx, like I said, on the subway, like a lot of those kids were living just like Phil. They were living in the hood, and they discovered metal their own way. And the Bronx was the best drugstore ever. That's awesome. But yeah, so you had people finding their own way, but you had a lot of people that were into metal, and like I said, we were rolling deep. We were going to like Pantera shows at Roseland and stuff like that, and you had a whole group of us. Like I remember seeing Sepultura at the Academy on 43rd Street.
I was there,
and there were there was a whole crew of us from the Bronx.
Yeah,
and
Bronx heads. Yeah, when we all rolled together. Yeah,
fights all over the place. It was just insanity.
Well, that show, every gang in the city showed up to that.
Oh yeah,
it was like the Warriors, and it just
it was. It really was. You had all like the crews and stuff like that. That was Chaos AD. So that was like the mid '90s, and it was just.
So you had
just
crews,
madness.
and you had different genres because you had punk kids, you had hardcore kids, you had thrashers, you had death metal kids, all there to see Sepultura.
Yep.
So
yeah, I like what RS70. Hardcore has no neighborhood.
Yeah,
we started with rock, then metal, then pro rock, then hardcore. In a certain regard, it's absolutely true. And we're talking about how kind of that era, how the violence is kind of ramping up, right? You had Sepultura, you had Biohazard, you had L'Amour's. Yep. We're sort of making our way to Castle Heights, and let's set the table. Like, what was out there before Castle Heights, right? We had CBGBs, right? Yep. I know another, and people keep mentioning Bond Street, right?
Yes.
Bond Street.
Now we're making our way to Castle Heights now, right? So I'm just trying to set the table. Before the shows at Castle Heights, what was out there, Phil?
So yeah, CB's, Wetlands, Coney Island High.
Right.
You had Bond Street. You had L'Amour. You had the Marquee back in the day.
Yes, in the 20s on the west side.
Yeah. You had the Palladium back in the day doing shows. Webster Hall too. All these venues, like because Webster used to do the old version of the hardcore Super Bowls back then. Tons of shows went there, and so those were the spots back in my era for sure.
Yeah, I mean Bond Street for me was the big one because I worked around the corner. I used to spend a lot of time there, and we considered that like the way Castle ended up becoming home. And yes, Tom Murphy mentions Coney Island High also, which was a little bit later, but right before Castle Heights really picked up. But Bond Street for me and a lot of my friends was kind of home, and that's where, in my mind, like that was the precursor for Castle Heights because Bond Street was where a lot of the bigger hardcore bands started out, like Bulldoze, like 25 to Life, bands like that.
Yeah, you had All Out War play there. You had so many bands, bro, that would eventually be a big deal in New York hardcore.
And like Breakdown was playing there, and eventually Bond Street closed. And May was asking, where was Bond Street? The Bond Street Cafe was on Bond Street, which was just a couple blocks below, what was it, 2 blocks down from 4th Street.
Yeah.
And it was right off Broadway. So it was right there in the middle of everything in the village. And that was our regular hangout. Like me and some of my friends would go there. We didn't even know who was playing. We'd just go. it was that type of place that we knew somebody was playing, so we just went.
Here's
there you go.
Like kind of a typical pass. You know, this is one of those places that would like give you a pass and your name was highlighted.
Yep.
You'd bring in, 50 of your friends, and then they'll tell you brought in 5.
Yeah, of course, because they pay you by the passes, but then of course the number they have is not the number you had, but whatever.
Yeah.
So a couple of more clubs that I just came to mind. The Train Depot in the Bronx, off the train.
And that place was short-lived, but that was a big one.
Yeah. And here's I'm sorry, it took me a second to get this up. A Coney Island High flyer, and like you mentioned, here's Bulldoze, and here's Irate.
Yep.
Playing Coney Island.
And Locked in a Vacancy played twice.
Is that right?
I don't know. They're on there twice.
Oh, they're on there twice.
2 sets.
I hope they got paid double.
Drew, fun fact from this show: it was Kev Bulldoze had just come home from prison. This was his very first show back in New York. So we were honored to get the call, and we went out there and repped, man, because we were big fans of Bulldoze and wanted to do right. And I ended up being very good friends with all those guys. So shout out to them. I love those guys forever. Just the best dudes. Everyone on that bill is great, but
and look how shit's popping off here. The next night is Fahrenheit
and Underdog
floor punch. Wow.
Our Bronx brothers in Fahrenheit. Shout out to them. Love and respect.
Yeah.
To those guys.
Yeah. So in this environment, do things start get rolling here? Like, what's the background of Castle Heights as far as you know, and how did shows land here?
I forget what year it was, but Kevin
5. I think it was.
Oh yeah, and here's Kevin Castle. He mentions Raw in Queens. Yeah, but that was
Queens. Yeah.
And I'll also mention that the Pyramid was doing shows there because the first time I met Phil was when Irate played the basement of the Pyramid.
Yeah. That's
so,
right.
And that was what, 96?
Second show in 96. So Drew, our first show, Irate's first show ever, was at Castle Heights.
Oh,
in 1996, September of 1996.
And
I didn't know anything. Right? I didn't know anything about Castle Heights before then. But boy, did I get a quick education on that when we first played our first show. It was awesome. Yep. That's very young Phil Vibez there. Shit. Yep.
And look at you guys from the Bronx repping Bronx hard.
It's a nice jersey.
Yeah, that's a hard rep. That's a hard rep right there.
You got to rep your set, Drew. You got to rep your set, bud. So that's what I was doing back then, and wow, what a great memory. That was the first time we dipped our toes into this business, man. And it was a week before then. I couldn't think of the lyrics or I wanted to throw up. That's how nervous I was. Up until that very moment, I wanted to throw up. So me probably trying not to throw up. So great memory.
Yeah, it was a good year for the Yankees, too. That's very
and my eldest boy was born that year, 1996. So
wow.
Shout out to J Vibez. I love you, buddy.
Yeah. So Gary, you ended up what was your first sort of come to with Castle Heights?
I probably first went there. I don't remember exactly when, but it had to be probably 95 or 96. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I went there probably to see Cold Front play because I was friends with those guys. And I don't remember who else was there, but I ended up going there a bunch of times, and I was definitely at that show. I don't think that was definitely not the first time I went there, but it was probably a lot of the same bands. And then I know my old band Distance played there one time, and I believe we played with District 9. Mm. And that had to be like 97 or early 98. And then
Gary's not telling you that he played in 1,000 bands, actually.
Well, that's true, but I'm leaving that part out.
Gary's a journeyman.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was when I first played Castle Heights and had talked to Kevin. Kevin was the booker at Castle Heights, and one of the things I'll say about Castle Heights, comparing it to Bond Street, because Castle Heights ended up being home for a lot of us. The big difference between the two was that everybody on the staff at Castle Heights was super nice, super friendly to us, and treated us like family. Bond Street was the total opposite. Like what you said about the passes, Drew, and about getting paid. Like the staff weren't nice to us at all. Like we were just there to, make them money, and we were never friendly with anybody that worked there, really. And Castle was the total opposite, because whether it was Kevin, Frank, who was the owner, Uncle Louie, the bartenders, everybody, like we all got along great, and they always treated all of our bands incredibly well. And it was the total opposite, because you didn't get that at a lot of clubs. All these clubs that we mentioned, for the most part, you had the staff over here and you had the bands over here, and they weren't, we might be friendly with a couple of people, but it wasn't anything like the family atmosphere that we had at Castle.
Yeah, we were welcome from day one.
I don't know who 01 Red Eye Devil is, but
Tom Murphy. Mr. Tom Murphy.
Manhattan versus Queens attitude. I think that's somewhat true. It's like the clubs in Manhattan had a bit of a different attitude. Castle Heights sort of, out there on Northern Boulevard, right?
Yeah.
But it was a welcoming environment. Like they made Irate feel great and at home from the first show till our last show there. It was just such a great environment. Shout out to Kevin, Louie,
yes,
on the doorman, and Frank, who ran the place as best they could and did a great job all those years, man, and gave us a home and gave us an opportunity and a platform for Irate's name to rise amongst the ranks and, go forward and do our thing globally after that.
And not only that, but also it was the type of thing, I ended up working there. Yeah. Phil ended up working there.
Yeah, I worked there.
Glenn from Billy Club worked there also. So not only did we have that kind of relationship with our bands, but we ended up being employed there also.
Yeah, they thought that Gary and I could keep the law, and so because everyone knew us, so they weren't going to really test us or anything.
Yeah, we both worked security there. I also did sound there sometimes. So we had that kind of relationship also.
This is, and I know sometimes we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, we'll double back, but we're just kind of going towards the light here where the horse leads us. But this is like one of the great. It's a great flyer, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Chris B. Chris B's artwork.
That
untouchable.
Was a legendary night at that place.
Yes.
It was our CD release party for Bernard McCrumling Society, and it was our first major release as a band. So we were so psyched to get this party going, and we had our best friends play it. So what else could you ask for? It was an amazing night, violent but good violent, and fun and sweaty and all that.
Yeah, and I wasn't even in Billy Club at that point.
Were you in Billy Club at this
point?
I
was not in Billy Club yet. I didn't join Billy Club until 2001, but I was at this show because I was at pretty much being friends with the EGH guys and with Irate and the Billy Club guys. I was at a lot of their shows.
I gotta ask, who is Punch the Clown?
Punch the Clown, we're from Brockton, Massachusetts. And Kevin traded shows with those guys because they were booking out of a club called 141.
Yes.
Brockton. So Irate got to go there and play with Shutdown and 25 to Life at the time. So it was a lot of show trading with bands Kevin used to do. Yeah. So
And I'll give Kevin a lot of credit for that too, because that was something that he did that a lot of other people didn't do. And Kevin was also working with bands. He was managing some bands, and he would build those relationships with these other areas, with these other clubs out of state, and go back and forth. And that's how a lot of bands were able to play out of state.
Yeah, I mean, Kev was managing us at the time, and that's how we got to go to Albany for the first time, and then build a huge name over there with Ted Etal and all the shows that Ted Etal was putting over there at the time. Shout out to Ted. That's a picture of
That's Sworn Enemy.
Sworn Enemy when they were Mindset, I believe.
Yes.
So, before they changed the name to Sworn Enemy, and that was a beautifully packed Castle Heights. Yeah.
Is that right, Scandato? Jeff from Lucky 13?
Yeah.
Was in Punch the Clown?
Mike and Kevin just mentioned it also, because Kevin manages Lucky 13. So I didn't even know that Jeff was in Punch the Clown. That's hysterical.
Fun fact.
It's a small world.
I thought it was a great name. That's great.
And Flyer by Chris B. Got to shout that out. That was an awesome flyer, man.
And Tom Murphy says that he took that photo.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, like you said, that was Mindset, right?
Yeah.
And here are some of the usual suspects that we're talking about, including Kevin Castle Scandato, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah. That was Mindset right before they became Sworn Enemy, and that's on the right there is Lorenzo with Kevin, and then you got Sal, you got Jimmy, who you can't see, and you got Mike Raff.
Yeah.
And they changed from Mindset to Sworn Enemy, I think, in 98, early 98, was it?
Yeah, there was another band called Mindset at the time, and they had an issue with that, so they changed. Irate also had an issue with a band called Irate from California. We'll get into that later, but yeah, that was sometimes you got to change the names.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's tackle this thing while we're here. Why does Castle Heights have such a reputation for violence? I mean, was it more violent than anything else that was going on anywhere? I have my doubts. I was at L'Amour's. I was at Castle Heights a couple times. Phil, what's your take on it? Why did Castle Heights have that albatross around its neck?
The rumors about the place's violence or whatever are kind of exaggerated. However, it was a very violent dance floor. Like when Irate played, when Billy Club played, when Sworn Enemy and EGH played, people were going to get hurt. Not on purpose hurt, but hurt because you're in the middle of fucking chaos. Sometimes fights broke out, but fights broke out in every club in New York City.
Yeah.
Well, so the fact that this gets so much shine for being a violent fighting place, that's not true. Fights definitely happen. This is a violent music we're playing. You know, we're not going to fucking sing Kumbaya and hold hands. We're going to kick each other. I used to hit all my friends, and they used to hit me. But it was all love. But we did it hard, and we showed no mercy, and we flipped around and cartwheeled and windmilled and did all that shit, and we did it at a high level. And so kids were afraid to go in there because, you know, they want to mess with the solid gold dancers in there. As we go. And I guess, you know, if I was a young kid going into that situation, I'd be a little nervous, especially if I didn't know anybody. But we all knew each other. So to us, it was just us kicking each other's asses in the sake of good music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But clubs wouldn't book Irate because of our reputation for being a violent band. Coney Island High probably banned us after the Deicide show because we follow Castle Heights to Deicide, and our kids beat the shit out of the death metal kids. The sound guys begging us to get off the stage by the and it was just it was ambulances were involved. Glenn Benton comes up to me after, he's like, "You motherfuckers are crazy," and we're Deicide. So, you know, that was the reputation. We went out to different places and fucked shit up.
I'll say this too. Somebody mentioned it in the chat much earlier, like the beginning of the show. The guerrilla warfare DVDs. Those floated around for a long time, and some of the stuff is on YouTube. And those are the videos where it's got like the studio version, but it shows all these kids spin kicking around and stuff like that. There you go. So
the spin kick master right there.
Little Greg right there.
Little Greg, may he rest in peace forever. Yes. We love and we miss him so much.
Miss you, brother.
He was the king of all kings when it came to that dance floor. His moves were incredible and are copied by every era of hardcore ever since.
Absolutely.
And there's no question in my mind that he is the greatest dancer. He's just the greatest human being that ever was. And we miss him so fucking much. So I just want to say, shout out to Little Greg. You are in our heart forever, brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes,
so with the guerrilla warfare DVDs, that exposed the rest of the world to the style that was kind of developing in New York. Sure. Because I've talked to kids from Europe and from Japan that have said to us, like, that's how I learned about hardcore dancing.
100%.
So because of that, like that style of dancing, these people watch these videos and were like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And they were nervous. And since Castle Heights was kind of the center of the scene as far as our bands and our friends' bands, like our family, that was part of the reputation. But to be honest with you, and Phil will say this too, because we both work security there, rarely have ever had any problems. Certainly nothing more than you would have seen at like CBGB's or anything like that. I'll be honest with you, having worked security there, because they did other type of shows, I had a lot more problems working Thursday night Spanish rock nights than I had at any hardcore show.
Yeah, same here. Like, we had more issues at other type of shows than we did our own. But again, a lot of that is because everyone knew us.
Right.
So they weren't.
And everybody knew each other for the most part.
Knew each other. Yep.
It certainly wasn't the type of thing where they like went after outsiders or whatever.
Yeah,
we had people just like we said about Kevin bringing bands in from different places. Yeah. You had groups of people that came in from Massachusetts, from Pennsylvania, places like that, and it was always all love. Like, it wasn't like, oh, those guys aren't from here, let's go fuck them up.
No,
it was never like that at all.
On occasion, did someone come in drunk or something and start dumb shit and get handled? Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Well, that was a given. That's a
given.
That was a given back then. Yeah.
You see that anywhere. It happened at CB's. Yeah. It happened at the Pyramid. It happened everywhere.
Now,
who's this singing?
That is Rob from Everybody Gets Hurt singing on stage with Billy Club Sandwich, because you can see Martin on the right side and Malone on the left side.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that the date on that's May of 2001. So that was the last show that Billy Club played before I joined. That was with their old bass player.
2001. Yeah.
And I took that photo.
Yep.
And, we met Everybody Gets Hurt and Sworn Enemy there at Castle. That's where our friendships forged. And the four of us bands just became this tight Voltron-like unit where we gave each other strength. We were like a big juggernaut of power coming out of Queens together. And none of us sounded like each other, which was even better. That the four bands had their own original sounds that were heavy as fuck, that were violent as fuck. And we just fell in love with each other as brothers, man.
And it was all family connections too, because I met the EGH guys, and that's Puerto Rico. Yeah. I met the EGH guys because I was friends with Nick B, and I was friends with I got to meet Chris B. I also worked with their sister Angela at Tower Records. So I met them that way. Sworn Enemy I met when we played together on a show that Billy Club played also in '98 in a park in Ossining, New York. So it was all, everybody came together their own way, and we built it into a family. So those four bands are always tied together, and that shot right there is all of us in Puerto Rico.
That's Castle Heights, the quintessential Castle Heights family photo right there. With my brother Paulie, No Neck Antignani in the middle.
Rest in peace, Paulie.
Rest in peace also.
Dead center in the shot.
The best, just the best dude too, man. So we love you, Paulie. Wherever you are, man, I fucking miss you, brother.
You know, so there's a promoter in Puerto Rico that said, you know what?
Yeah.
Not only do I want 1 or 2, but I'm going to get 3 of these.
No, they got all 4.
They got all 4.
And a bit of history here. I'm pretty sure we've had 2s and 3s, but those 2 shows were the only times that all 4 of those bands performed together.
And just tell us again what 4 bands that was.
That was Billy Club Sandwich, Irate, Everybody Gets Hurt, Sworn Enemy. That's Martin singing with Irate.
The big 4 of Castle Heights.
Yep.
Was the promoter someone that came to Castle Heights and like saw it and was like, I got to get this to Puerto Rico?
No.
He just because back then it was what year was this?
That was 2004.
Yeah, 2000.
So, right, so the internet was.
The internet was kind of a thing at that point.
It was
there, right?
It was MySpace.
Yeah.
Well, this kid Rafa from Puerto Rico, he had actually booked Sworn Enemy. But in the conversation, he mentioned that he was a fan of all us 3 as well. So Sal came to us and said, hey, we're going to PR, but these guys want all you guys to come. Are you down? And we were like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's do this family trip that we'd always talked about doing, a family tour. And it finally presented itself in the shape of Puerto Rico. So
yeah.
So we all agreed, and and we went out together and did the thing.
And that was the first time that Billy Club Sandwich had traveled outside the United States. Some of the other guys had already gone and done Europe or Japan, but that was our first time.
Yeah,
that's an exciting thing for.
Oh, it was amazing.
Oh, Drew, the hijinks on that tour.
Oh my God.
I can't legally tell you about, but they were
classified.
Yeah, it's classified information.
I'm looking for. Do I have a flyer?
Yeah, there's a flyer.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
I did send it to you.
I got it.
With Statue of Liberty on it.
Puerto Rican shows. Here we go.
Yeah, it was the Puerto Rican invasion.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. The Puerto Rico invasion tour.
That's a great bill, man.
And it was only 2 shows.
Were they well attended? Were people excited?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kids on the island were hungry for shows, and they showed up and they danced their fucking asses off, man. So
and the photo that you showed before with Martin singing with Irate is actually from San Juan, from that show.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that place was real small. That stage was real small in that place.
That's awesome.
It was a gay strip bar on regular days.
Oh,
yeah. What happened was they had another venue booked only like maybe a month before the show. That venue closed, so they had to switch venues in a rush. So we had no idea, and then we look up and somebody noticed the rainbow flag, and then somebody was like, yeah, this is usually a gay strip club. And we were like, oh, they're having a hardcore show here.
The sound was great. The drinks were plenty. So, yeah, we had a great time, man.
And
RS asks, real talk, there's a scene in Puerto Rico?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's
they come here all the time.
A lot of them. Yeah. A lot of them were just here. A bunch of them just came up here for the Everybody Gets Hurt show.
Yep.
Right.
So shout out to our Puerto Rican family out there.
Yeah. And some of those guys were guys that were there back in 2004. So 20 years later.
With Tom Murphy, who says is the worst weed ever. I agree. But then we smoked it.
Right.
Oh man.
Hey, let me take a sponsor break.
Yeah.
And let's come back and let's talk about some highlights, like some like I know some special bands came through Castle Heights, and also let's talk a little bit more about sort of the some more of the other quintessential Castle Heights bands, and then and why did it all sort of wind down at a certain point and come to an end. So give me a couple minutes. Let's hear from some sponsors, okay?
Cool.
There you have it. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We got Gary Muttley on. from Billy Club Sandwich and Phil Vibez from Irate. We are taking a walk down memory lane with the Castle Heights Club on Northern Boulevard in Queens. Let me dig up sponsors, the show promos. Let's do this, and we'll talk some more after.
Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Will that be cash or in debt?
Do you mean debit?
Yes. Sorry. Another eternally satisfied customer.
Hey guys, Vlad from Organic Grill. As you can see, we're in a new location on West 3rd Street, right by Blue Note and Comedy Central. The place is bigger, kitchen is bigger, we have more varieties, more food. We are looking forward to treat you guys with great dishes. All Hardcore Chronicles, welcome to Organic Grill. We are going to serve all the events as we usually do, and we are happy to see you guys.
Peace, what it do? Welcome to NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. Specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
Video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young reader section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars! We are New York hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
Yes, sirree, this is the New York Hardcore Chronicles live. Taking a walk down memory lane with our friends from Castle Heights. Want to remind you of some events that are coming up. You know, fresh, coming in hot after the incredible Tompkins Square Park show yesterday. This Sunday, 1 week from today, brought to you by Heggs and the New York Hardcore Chronicles. It is Rampage Fest 6 with Adrenaline OD, Silence Equals Death, Fire is Murder, Blackout Shoppers, Daija, Iconicide, and No Compromise. 2 stages, 7 bands, free, all ages, Sunday matinee. What the fuck you want me to do? What do I got to do? What do I got to drag these bands into your living room and set up? Get your ass out of the house and get down to this show. Babrain's HR benefit with a cavalcade of stars Saturday, June 22nd. Incendiary Device is opening the show with Ma'afa. Many of our friends getting up with the all-star band, including Ryan Bland from Ache, Ralphie G from The Mob, Chaka from Orange 9mm, Jimmy G, and more. Eddie Leeway's Legacy Show, Friday, June 14th, out at Debonair Music Hall. And for the love of Eddie Leeway, another show happening at Jeff's Lucky 13 on Sunday, June 23rd. The big banger here, speaking of Sworn Enemy, the big banger, Sunday, July 21st. It is the 50th Back to the New York Hardcore Roots Show. Free all ages Sunday matinee at the Bowery Electric. Sworn Enemy, Incendiary Device, Cropsey, Redwoods, and Foul Pride. That's the big kahuna. Hey, if you're down in Maryland, in Cumberland, Maryland, we, Incendiary Device, on the Friday, we're playing Savage Mountain Punk Festival, Scream headlining Thursday, DOA on Saturday. Sunday, August 18th at the Bowery Electric, Fury of Five, Freya, Concrete Ties, Ancient Domains, featuring members of Supertouch and Bold, and Deadshot. So lots going on. Hey, for those out there that might be watching the show or getting back into it after a while, we could use your support. There's a Patreon page right there. Please join Patreon. There's also a PayPal address if you want to make a donation. And we have the capabilities. There's a super chat function. You could do a super chat function. It comes through in color. Ask a question. You go to the front of the line. Also, I want to remind everybody, if you have a communication device, which I have a feeling you do, please follow the show on Instagram. It's at Stone Films NYC. And if you're watching the show in rerun, please subscribe to the Stone Films NYC YouTube page. I want to shout out latest patrons Andrew Jones, John Steinheimer, and Brad Irvin. Please support the show on Patreon. That said, let's bring our guests back on, Mr. Gary Muttley and Phil Vibez. Hey, man, let's see what we got going here. Someone was asking RS70 once again. Respects to Gigi and Crispy. Anyone know who the bouncers were? Who the bouncers were at the club?
You're looking at them
right here.
Well, they had others. This kid named Mike. Let's bring up John the Doorman, who did.
Yeah, John the Doorman, who did take a beating at times.
Yes.
Oh,
John was the most human being throughout that whole run, but God bless his heart. But
love John.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you had like at different points. Phil and I worked at different times there.
Yeah.
Kerry Skins worked there.
Yeah.
There were some people that were seeing people, and then there were a couple of guys that were more like Kevin mentioned Super Dave. There were a couple of guys from some metal bands that also worked as bouncers.
And on special occasions, Kevin would hire the big juice heads to keep the crowd control, like for Hatebreed or something. If Hatebreed came around, or you needed more.
Yeah.
You needed more
when you needed the big guns.
Yeah.
Kevin Haggerty says most bouncers' name I've experienced were all named asshole, dickhead, or motherfucker. Right.
Well, but that goes back to what I was saying before about clubs in general. That, like, especially like these dance clubs. That's why the Palladium riot happened, because and the Limelight was like that too, where you had all these like dance club type of bouncers that were dicks, and then that's why you had more problems. But that's why Kevin and Frank and John always wanted to bring people in that knew the scene.
Yeah.
Because that's when you had problems. They don't know what hardcore dancing is, so suddenly they see somebody spin kicking or doing cartwheels, and they want to yoke them up, and that's when the problems start.
Yeah.
Traditionally, that's been the case, right?
Yeah.
So,
hey, I want to shout out Tall Paul, man. Good to see you, man. Good to see you,
Paul.
Right on, brother.
One second thought.
Another great band from Castle Heights era, man.
Yep. One second thought.
And I'm going to shout out some bands later on, just before we go, just to make sure they get shot. That's one of them. One second thought for sure.
Well, let's go there. I have it in my notes here. Dare I actually look at my notes? Because you do all the homework, get all the notes together, and then the show just starts popping, and it just feels great. And
go somewhere else,
right?
Yeah.
That's what's up. So, who some of the like we talked about the sort of like the I don't want to say the big four or the big five, but let's talk about some of the other Castle Heights bands that frequented. I know there's a lot of bands that came through once, bands that played once or twice, but tell us about a couple other frequent flyers.
Gary, if you mind, I'll go.
Go ahead.
So I do have a list of
please.
that. So I'm going to start with Redline from New
Redline was great.
Still Life
from New Jersey.
Yep. Still Life, Southpaw, Restrain from Queens. Shout out to them.
And that's a different Southpaw because there's a different Southpaw out there now, but this was the old one with Elmo singing.
Well, Elmo singing and the OG and the real Southpaw to me. So
yes.
So Denied.
Yes, Denied for sure.
Closed Fist, Square One, Relentless from Long Island, Homies of Ours Forever.
Yep.
Shout out to them.
Restrain.
Restrain.
Eye to Eye.
Eye to Eye. 1 Second Thought. 5 Minute Major. Muddlehead. Born. Downside. Rest in peace, Rob. God Forbid. My homies in God Forbid got their part there. Through the Discipline. Full Blown Chaos. Setback. Cold Front. Breakdown. For the Love of. Turmoil. Trip Face. Cleanser. Shout out to Christian McKnight.
Yep.
Trip Face. Glassjaw. Diesel. No Submission. Wow. Yep. Emanon, Fuse, Ensign, Still Suit, Dead on Impact, and then the Bronx bands, which were Go to Mentis, Driven by Hatred, District 9, Fahrenheit, us, of course, in Billy Club and Irate, Go to Mentis, Rights Reserved, and Blackout, my homies in Blackout.
Yep.
So those are the ones that I remember off the top of my head. If I forgot you, I'm sorry, but Castle Forever.
I mean, there's so many, we're never going to cover them all.
Yeah.
I remember.
Candiria, Hatebreed.
Well, yeah, you had some big ones.
Those are the big ones.
I remember coming out to Castle Heights. Might have been when I was managing Marauder.
Marauder.
They definitely played there.
Yeah.
It might have been. Could it have been a Marauder Hatebreed show? Could that have happened like that?
No, that wasn't.
I don't think so.
When Hatebreed played, they had like locals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you had Murphy's Law played there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Dave G mentions Candiria. Candiria definitely played there. 5 Minute Major that Phil mentioned was actually my band before I joined Billy Club.
Yep.
I played with them for a while from I think it was late '99 into 2001. You had some bigger bands, you know, as far as like
that's what I want to. That's what Paul mentioned. Shadows Fall. So let us cue us in on. I know there was a couple big bangers that came through, and a couple of bands that weren't big bangers at the time.
Right.
Fill us in on that, Gary.
You had Overcast played there. Phil mentioned God Forbid. Shadows Fall played there multiple times. Hatebreed, Candiria, Crowbar played there. Mastodon played there. Mastodon played there twice.
Yep.
I don't remember if VOD played there.
Cryptopsy
definitely played there. One time, Murphy's Law played there one time. I think it was Jimmy's birthday, and Frank, the owner, gave him one of those Jägermeister refrigerators that they had.
LA Guns.
LA Guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kevin did nights that were hard rock.
Yeah. It wasn't strictly like a hardcore club or like a heavy metal club. Like Kevin definitely booked more rock bands there also. Like it was a rock club. So he booked stuff like LA Guns, which was a big one. He booked what was the band? The Almighty, if you remember them, with Ricky Warwick.
That's Ricky.
Yeah, they played there.
We love them.
So Kevin was booking different types of bands. And Kevin mentions Today Is the Day. I think Mastodon played 4 times, not 2.
Wow.
Today Is the Day, and Mastodon I think toured and played there. And yeah, Kevin mentioned Jason Bonham did a full Led Zeppelin set there one time.
Wow.
So you had a mix. It wasn't strictly like a hardcore club or like a metal club. And I mentioned like they had Spanish rock nights also. Yeah. So they did different stuff.
Hey,
Kevin
right
wasn't
right there on Northern Boulevard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Listen, man, and Kevin wasn't afraid to mix bills, so we would play with a band called Dehumanized a lot, which were like, death metal from Queens,
Sure.
and all kinds of different mixed bills. So that was another exciting part of the room, that you had mixed bills with mixed crowds. Now that could get a little weird sometimes, but for the most part, it was cool.
And Kenny Finnegan mentions Cold as Life played there.
Yeah.
And Tom mentions Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles a step too far.
Sure.
Yeah, so you had a lot of different types of bands playing. Electric Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
So you had a mix of a lot of different stuff going on.
Let me ask you about this. So this is sort of this one's kind of gone down in lore a little bit. Yeah, tell us about this one, Gary.
So this was another one before I joined Billy Club, but I was there because I was good friends with the guys even before then, and that was a crazy show. Eye to Eye, everybody, and Kenny Finnegan's in the chat, and he was the singer of Eye to Eye. A lot of people always talked about the Five Fingers of Death, and it was basically the four bands we mentioned before, plus Eye to Eye. It was Billy Club Sandwich, Everybody Gets Hurt, Irate, Sworn Enemy, and Eye to Eye. So this was a good show. And then there was the other. Billy Club had a couple of Christmas shows, because then there was the other one.
Well,
which I think you have that photo.
Yeah, where is that? Let me find that. Oh, yeah, there's this crazy one. Hold on, I'm looking. Keep talking.
Yeah, that the one that you're digging up was from December of 2000.
And what's the backstory here? I asked you, like, what is this, a Christmas tree? What's going on?
Yes, that was December of 2000. If you know Billy Club Sandwich, Martin always had a Billy Club. We had a bag of Billy Clubs that we would bring to different shows, and actually on the Guerrilla Warfare DVD, we had a box of broken Billy Clubs that we showed off on there in an interview. So Dean from No Redeeming Social Value decided to grab a Christmas tree from one of the guys out on the street and buy it, and Martin ended up using that as a Billy Club instead. So that's what you see in this photo. It's pretty funny.
Dean is good. Dean's good like that. Yeah. So and of course, even before I joined the band, and definitely since I joined the band, Billy Club was always a little crazy, so we would do crazy stuff. That one is from that's 2002. That was one of the last times that we played Castle Heights, because Castle closed later in 2002. Got it.
So that's Billy Club on stage. Martin with the scrubs.
Phil?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, you got anything? Oh yeah, here. I'm just looking for some other good shots.
Redeeming, you had Shutdown, you had Indecision play that room. So many of New York's staple bands.
Shutdown was actually the biggest show ever at Castle.
Is that right?
Shutdown, No Redeeming, Inhuman.
I'm going to dispute that and say that it might have been Dehumanized Irate for Halloween. But Kevin, you know the answer. Tell us.
I got it straight from Kevin. So Kevin he said the number was very high that night. Definitely way over capacity.
Well, I think that can kind of segue to sort of the next sort of question is, why did things wind down at Castle Heights? Why did it sort of arc out, and what happened? How did shows come to an end there, and why?
I think it was really just a financial thing when it came down to it. There you go. Kevin says the Shutdown did 300 paid.
You're lying, Kev.
That was the most they ever had at Castle.
That's impressive. 300 paid.
Yes.
Paid.
Yo, listen. Listen, we do 300 down at the Bowery Electric, but nobody's paying.
Yeah.
The capacity was 100 something. I don't remember the exact number. Kevin probably would know the exact number because somebody's asking in the chat. But
I think it was 150 capacity.
Yeah, it was somewhere 150, 160 or something like that. So it was almost double.
Well, we all used to pack it double, so.
Right.
So, I forget the actual listed capacity that was on the wall.
My brother's always an honor to share the stage.
That's Barry from Go to Mentis.
Shout out to the Go Crew.
For those that don't know, Martin was the singer of Go to Mentis before Billy Club.
Got it.
And we've been friends with those guys all these years to this day. And when I talk about the guys that were on the train all rolling down to Roseland and stuff like that, Barry was one of them.
Yes, sir.
Kevin says that the
it was 1:30.
so let me ask this, and Kevin could probably answer it in the chat room. It's a little bit of a different era, right? This is all pre 9/11. I mean, when you had a capacity of 130, I mean, like you could legitimately put twice that many in there and not really get hassled,
Well, if we're going to talk about the end of Castle Heights, that comes into play. Because one of the last shows, and actually, Drew, I think you have the flyer for this. It was the last hardcore show. It's the one that Darkside's on.
I'd have to find it, but go ahead.
Okay. That was the last hardcore show, and that was, since you asked about why things wound down, it was really financial and issues with Frank and trying to maintain the club, and it just became too difficult. So in the end, we knew this was going to be it. The last hardcore show, only half the bands played because the cops came and raided the place. But towards the end, the cops definitely started to raid the place more, and it was even before 9/11.
Yeah, that became a headache with the cops always coming in, trying to, shut shows down for whatever reason. And, whatever other issues Frank had with the club at the time financially, they all played a part in the demise.
Yeah, because if you're a New Yorker and you were around back then, and it still goes on even now, like they look at these fines and all that shit as revenue, bringing in money. So they'll go and bust balls. And as neighborhoods started to change, it would happen even more. And as Kevin mentions, Jackson Heights, the area was an issue too.
Well, I think you could draw a parallel to kind of what just happened with St. Vitus, right?
Yeah, well, and that's always been the story in New York for a long time, if you know. But they would always raid when it was convenient for them, whether it was a money-making thing or trying to change the makeup of a certain neighborhood.
Sure.
So all of that stuff factored in when it came to the end of Castle Heights. And like you said, the St. Vitus thing is just another example because that history always repeats itself.
Yeah.
Because you open a club like that, and then as the neighborhood changes, suddenly people don't want the club there anymore. Because eventually Castle closed and it became a restaurant because that was a little more appealing to the neighborhood as opposed to having a bunch of us derelicts drinking 40s outside.
And is the building still there to this day?
Yeah.
It is there. I think it's a different restaurant now. Frank from Castle Heights, he was involved in the restaurant. And yeah, Kevin mentions the landlord wanted them out. So, and it was, and Kevin, right? correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Castle was on a long-term lease. And then everything, they wanted another long lease, and it was like they couldn't agree on a new lease. But I think they may have had like a 10-year lease, which is unheard of. So when you get to the point of an end of a 10-year lease, in a lot of cases, the numbers are going to be very different when you try to renew it. So that was really what it came down to. But then with the cops raiding the place more, as Kevin said, from 2000 to 2002, and the last hardcore show, we got raided. Like Darkside never played. A bunch of the other bands on the show never played.
Irate didn't get to play, and that was our house.
Yeah. I don't. Did Billy Club even play? I forget. I don't think we did.
I think you guys did, though. I think
Yeah.
you guys went on first, and then EGH, and then after EGH, it just got shut down. And we didn't get to play, and Darkside didn't get to play.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had a packed house, and the cops raided it and shut everything down.
In the post aftermath of Castle Heights closing, Phil, like, who picked up the slack? Like, what like, do you remember, like, was there like was there a void? Like, where did these bands go?
There kind of was a void, because that's when everything started dying out. Like CB's was going out.
Right.
Wetlands had already shut down, and Coney Island High wasn't around anymore.
You had the Red Zone in Queens trying to pick up the slack,
Right. Yeah.
but that place was too far out. It was in Middle Village, and you definitely didn't have the same. The Voodoo Lounge was the same guy that booked that owned the Red Zone. But the Red Zone had a bad reputation because the guy from Voodoo Lounge didn't really have a good reputation. It certainly wasn't like the reputation and like the what we had with Kevin and John and all the Castle Heights people.
It's interesting. We always talk about how, art is cyclical in nature, right?
Yeah.
And this stuff, kind of, the wave goes in and the wave goes out, and bands, a wave of bands will come up, and a lot of it has to do with the venues and opportunities that these bands have to play.
Oh yeah,
it's a big part. It's a big part of it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of the wave went back out when Castle Heights closed around 2002. There was a little bit of a lull in the action.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. And part of it, again, goes back to the relationships that Kevin had built with the out of town bands, because he had bands coming in from all over. Because Joe Hardcore, Punishment, they played at Castle Heights. That's when I first met Joe.
Shout out to Joe.
Shout out to Joe. But because you had those relationships, that kept things going, because then that kept our bands going out to other places, and
we didn't have to sit at home and wait for a show. We could just go out and play the regions,
Right. Yeah. So that built that whole system there, and then with Castle off the table, that changed the whole ecosystem, because we didn't have that anymore. Like we didn't have regular places. We had a few places because you had, like I mentioned, the Red Zone was doing things for a little bit.
Bond Street was gone, right?
Bond Street was long gone.
Gone.
Wetlands was gone, right?
What was the other place that was in Brooklyn for a little bit? Right by the bridge. Was it the Rockstar Bar?
Yeah, Rockstar Bar.
Yeah. There was the Rockstar Bar, which was in the middle. Like, that's another place that couldn't exist now, because it was right down near the end of, I think it was the Manhattan Bridge on the Brooklyn side. And now that's all like loft apartments and stuff over there. But we would play there, and we played with like Out to Win from Pennsylvania and bands like that. And it was cool, but it wasn't the same. Kevin mentions the Temple in Brooklyn, which was doing shows for a while.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of different places, but none of them was necessarily steady, and none of them were any regular place. Like, there was certainly nothing that was like home.
Europa too. There was Europa in
Club Europa in Greenpoint for a while. But all these places is the same thing with like the staff. We didn't have the same relationship. So, and like even with the people, the promoters that were booking the shows, like, you had different promoters in and out. Like, it wasn't a regular place with a regular person.
Yeah. Like Kevin said, we just ran our course, and I guess that can be said, for so many, the Pyramid ran its course, the Wetlands, and everybody has their tales of, this was my place.
Mm-hmm.
For me, as a first generation American hardcore kid, it was A7. A7. when I was in the High and the Mighty, coming down from, when we all the high, we were all from the Bronx. The High and the Mighty, the guys in the High and the Mighty were all kids that went to Kennedy High School with me, and that's what it was. When I went to Boston, in 1981, and I went to my first hardcore show, and I fell in with the SSD Control crew, and I was in a band for a minute called the Mighty COs, and that whole thing ended. I came back to New York and wanted to start a band. I was, I had my friends that I grew up, friends that I went to Kennedy with. This guy played bass. Hey, listen, it's called hardcore. This is what we're doing,
Right.
And but all the guys in the High and the Mighty were from the Bronx. But A7 was our place. That was like our home. And other people say Wetlands was my home, or what was interesting when I did the last book, how many people said Bond Street was there?
Oh yeah, Bond Street was definitely home for me. Like I said, I worked around the corner. I used to be there all the time. But also, if you look at the history, Bond Street, like I said, first New York shows for like Bulldoze and 25 to Life and those bands that really blew up in the 90s, like that era of hardcore. A lot of those bands all played Bond Street, and I saw Candiria there. I saw VOD there. Saw Orange 9mm there. Like there were so many bands that came through there, and that was a spot. And then eventually Castle Heights kind of became that spot. And as Kevin said, they're trying to recapture. It's like lightning in a bottle. You're lucky because Castle did have a good run. And of about 10 years. And it's hard to get, especially nowadays with the way New York is, but even going back 20 years, the way New York has changed, it's like, what club has a run of 10 years at this point? It's hard.
It's difficult. And
for everyone that does well, so many of them will just go for a bit and gone. It's hard.
Right. And it says greatness can never be replicated, but you know what? These were, I don't think it's better, good or better or worse. For you, this was your golden era. For somebody else, their golden era was over here, and for somebody else, their golden era is happening right now. And there's one thing that I've learned to embrace in this hardcore thing and doing what I do is that these are the good times right now. These are the golden times right now. And to not be too invested in the past as far as that was great and now it's bullshit, because, nobody wants to hear that. And, you want to live in the present and look towards the future.
Right.
I think that's important. And that's sort of the attitude that I have. It's important to acknowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think what you got going on now with Bowery Electric is good because you got a good relationship there. It's a regular spot.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's hard to catch that. And part of it is planning and part of it is just sheer luck because everything changes over time.
And also, things change. Also, the ethos of this thing changes.
Absolutely.
What the kids are doing is different. The way they're dancing is different. It's that was that. This is this, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
The one difference in what has happened with the era that Irate and Billy Club came up and what we call like the Castle Heights scene and all those bands is that's when it started to get documented more because now you can go on YouTube and find that stuff.
Yeah.
And before it was a lot harder to really dig that stuff up. And now with music, it's even easier because you can just go on Spotify or whatever. But that era when we came up, like the late 90s into the early 2000s, that was when social media started with MySpace and stuff like that. And that's when people, like Tom says, no cell phones. People didn't have cell phones, but people started taking video and were able to share the video, and that changed a lot of things as far as what we can reach. Like what I said about the guerrilla warfare videos, you got kids from Europe and Japan talking about that's how they learned how to dance to hardcore music. So it changed things as far as what we do and how it reaches people.
Yeah,
it's crazy. We were Billy Club, Irate, EGH, Sworn Enemy, and all the bands of Castle. We're really fortunate to play somewhere that was just nurturing to our bands,
Absolutely.
accepting of our bands,
That's right.
no bullshit within the bands, no beefs within the bands.
No.
We tried to take the night whenever we played with our bros. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did we talk shit to each other? Yes. But that's the fire that we all lit in each other's
That's
asses.
Absolutely. Because
And
it's iron sharpens iron. So with us, and we always joke around, like Billy Club's thing is always like we're out to take people's lunch money. Like, and that's the relationship that we have within all of our bands, because we got nothing but love for each other. We're all, you know, there you go.
There you go.
That's
it's 30 years
know,
right there.
we have a lot of history together, and we love each other, and we hang out. It's not like we only see each other at shows. Like, we hang out and we do stuff together all the time.
Families are intertwined, like the whole thing, man. It goes
and it all started there, but it still goes on.
You know,
I'm blessed to be in a position, Drew, where 18 years after Irate played its last note, we're bigger than ever. Like the show offers that I get every year from Cousin, from Joe Hardcore, from Chris Mahmood, and all over the world is insane. But none of that happens without Castle Heights. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the staff there, to thank the bands.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone that made Irate what it is today. I'm blessed, man. And my brothers in Irate would tell you the same thing. We were truly blessed. We call lightning in a bottle, and we're grateful for that always.
We were very lucky to have that relationship that we had at Castle Heights, where we were friends, like I said, with the entire staff, with all the bartenders, with Kevin, who was booking the shows, with John the doorman, with Frank's Uncle Louie, who was always there helping out. We had a great relationship, and it was a family relationship because we were there playing, we were there working, and we were there just hanging out plenty of times. And there's not many clubs where we've had that kind of relationship.
You know, we mentioned it came up about that era and before, like the cell phones and the flyers. And I want to say in doing this book, and this isn't like a real personal plug. It just so happens that the second volume of this book that I did, which is 1990 to 1999,
right?
It's all based on the flyers. Castle Heights is really pretty predominant in here because it's one of the last eras that really it was flyer driven, and the artwork was fantastic, and there was so many great flyers. It was sort of the last gasp of that, like make a flyer, hand out a flyer, paste up a flyer era. If anybody gives a good goddamn and is interested, you could get it on my website, www.stonefilmsnyc.com. That's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Volume 2. Castle Heights plays very heavy into and a lot of the guys out there in the chat room were a part of the book. So yes, Kevin has some work. You know, all you guys are in there, and it's a very Scandato driven. It's like 5 Scandatos in this book, you know.
I want to say, Drew and I just met recently officially. We've been around each other a very long time in the same room, but we never got to really, chat. Yep. So to be in that book is a huge honor. So thank you for that.
You deserve to be there.
And by the way, talking about bands, one band that we didn't mention that I'd be remiss in not mentioning, partly because I have a Gallo original right back here, On the Rise.
On the Rise, that's right.
And I know Mike Gallo has done stuff with you before, Drew, and he said flat out that without On the Rise, without Castle Heights, he wouldn't be an Agnostic Front.
I love you, Mikey, wherever you are, man.
Was Steve Gallo in On the Rise?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so, it was the Gallo brothers and different people. Damien was the original singer.
Yep.
And Lenny, who was the guitar player, ended up switching over to singing later on. But yeah, it was the Gallo brothers.
I got to tie it in. Steve Gallo was loading stage platforms with us
Yep.
yesterday to do the show in the park. I mean, that's the kind of heart that kid has. Like Steve Gallo was there at 10:30 in the morning, along with Chris from Fire's Murder, loading out stage platforms to do this show for free in the park, man. So
Yep.
some
And
people
shout out
like
to the
it.
Fire's Murder guys.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
should be mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, On the Rise was one of those bands. We played with them at Castle Heights many times.
Hey, let me take a quick sponsor break, and we'll come back. We'll do a bit more. We'll take some questions from around the world. Okay.
Cool.
Solid.
There we go. There you have it. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Our guests today are Gary Muttley from Billy Club Sandwich, and Phil Vibez from Irate. We are sponsored by blah, 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 and my friends and yours, Mad Vintage. Mad Vintage buys, sells, and collects band shirts, primarily hardcore. The DIY operation was started and is operated by a hardcore kid who just loves collecting. They are always looking to buy out. I'm operating on very little sleep today, so be patient. They are always looking to buy out collections to either keep, sell, or trade. New shirts added daily at www.madvintage.com and posted on Instagram. Dig deep into that closet of crap and reach out to them. Make some dough for yourself. www.madvintage.com. Thank God, last but not least of these things I have to read coherently. 126 Hardcore Clothing is a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them and ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. How about some upcoming shows? This Wednesday, my friends, Chris Enriquez will be on the show. Speaking of St. Vitus, he is currently in Orange 9mm and has been in many bands, including Spotlights. After that, there's going to be a little bit of a lull. Next up will be Jack Rabid, old school New York hardcore. He played drums in Even Worse, and he's the publisher and editor of The Big Takeover. A week after that, Ted Parsons from Swans and Prawn. That's June 16th. And then on Sunday, June 23rd, Gabe from 1876. Looking forward to this one. Powwow Punk Rock will be on the show. The return of Dave Smalley with his bandmate from Down by Law, Sam Williams, on Sunday, June 30th. That is Arnie Stone's birthday. Then on Sunday, June 7th, the Lunatic. We've managed to bag him. Springer from SSD Control will be on Sunday, June 7th. Sunday, July 14th, Tony Portaro of Whiplash will be on. Then we are going to do a Side Trips with Jonathan Alpolieri on Wednesday, July 24th. He is a war correspondent, and this was just announced the other day. Sunday, September 8th, celebrating the book release of Vinny Stigma, the most interesting man in the world. We will have, yes, the godfather of New York hardcore, Vinny Stigma, as well as our good friend and neighbor, Howie Abrams. That said, any questions you have for our guests, please post them up. Anything you want to get across, don't be shy. Let it fly. Let's bring them back on. Phil Vibez, Gary Muttley. Let me move you guys around. Let's see what we got. You know, you mentioned, Phil, you mentioned about Castle Heights kind of giving you guys the platform and, you know, that took you around the world. Can you give us some perspective on that?
Yeah, so this is the border of Belgium and Germany. This was in 2002, I believe. UV on the right there has his glove because Irate used to play catch wherever we landed. That was our warm-up routine, play a nice game of catch.
That's
so
awesome.
That was our thing. And, yeah, this was going into Germany. A great tour. It was our first tour in Europe. And what a time, man. It was good to be young and then back then and full of energy and just loving it all. Just loving it all. That's in Belgium. First time in Belgium. First Yperfest.
The very first, you guys played the very first.
Yeah, I think it was the very first one. I could be wrong, but from my knowledge, it was.
It wasn't the first because I think it started back in the '90s. Because I think they just had an anniversary recently, like over like almost 30 years or something. It's something insane.
What is going on here?
That is, I just sent you that because somebody mentioned earlier talking about when we went to Puerto Rico. The promoter, Rafa, that's his mother cooking up a giant pot of food for all of us.
Wow.
Or 2 giant pots of food, actually.
Let me tell you, that food was amazing. I can still taste that shit, man. It's so good.
So you had all 4 bands. We're in the mountains of Puerto Rico.
Literally the mountains.
And we're driving up in the mountains on these little roads, and we all went to Rafa's mother's house, and she's cooking up all this. So you had Sworn Enemy, Billy Club, Irate, EGH, all of us derelicts, like, almost 20 of us. Yeah, we left Paulie behind. Paulie wanted to keep eating.
Paulie no neck behind.
But yeah, so that she was cooking up food for everybody. It was crazy.
God bless her. She was amazing.
Oh my God, it was so nuts, and it was fantastic.
Here's a good one from Spiky. Phil, you could address first. You, Phil, craziest show at Castle.
Well, that I attended or that I played. That's so.
However,
I'm going to say Irate and Dehumanized on Halloween 1998. We called it Halloween Havoc, and people got fucking hurt, bro. That shit was brutal as fuck. So that's for Irate. Now, as far as shows that I attended, I would put Candiria and Hatebreed at the top of the list for craziest shows.
You know what? Now that you mention it, you know what's coming up for me that actually just sort of had a flash? Candiria at Castle Heights. Yeah. You know what? I might have been there to see Candiria, not when I was managing Moroder, because Candiria played there often, correct?
Yeah, they played there many times.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Not that much. Not like us.
No, not like us.
Yeah. But it wasn't once or twice.
I was on
they played there multiple times.
Irate played one of those with them. So Candiria is real tight with us both. But I go all the way back to the beginning of their career. I wrote them a letter in high school saying, I love your band, this and that. When I met them later on, Carly knew every word of that letter. He recited it to me, and him and I have been brothers ever since. Like, I love those guys very much, and they were one of the greatest bands in New York at the time.
Yeah, and I've got a Candiria story too. I was working.
Sorry, Gary. That's
it's
coming to Coney Island High to support Irate when we played with Madball and 25 to Life, and it was our first show at Coney, so they came to support. I'll never forget that.
Awesome.
So when I was working at Tower Records, I was always wearing like metal and hardcore shirts, and I was always around on the first floor when people first come in.
What were you doing at Tower?
I worked as like a regular clerk and then was promoted to a supervisor. So I was a supervisor probably 4 of the 5 years that I was there.
On 4th Street?
Yep. And I worked with, I know he mentioned it on your show one time, I worked with Kevin Sharp. Because I'm pretty sure he mentioned working there when he was on the show. So, yep. Used to love that place. So I was always there working, and one day somebody comes up to me and he's like, hey, I always see you wearing like hardcore and metal shirts. Like, here's my band's demo. Check it out. I think you might like it. We're playing CBGB's like next week or 2 weeks or whatever. And it was Eric Matthews, who was the guitar player for Candiria. And it was like the second Candiria demo.
Eric, man, I fucking missed that dude.
And I went home and listened to that demo, and I was like, what is this? It was crazy. And I loved it. And I went to the show because I think Matt Melnick's band was playing the show also, Disassociate.
Right.
And that was where I first found out about Candiria and loved them from the jump and became friends with those guys to this day.
And they
Great band.
They took young bands like Irate and Billy Club out with them and played shows and exposed us to new fans and things. They did so much, and they would come to our shows and support when we needed support on big shows or whatnot. They were those dudes, and I can't say enough about that and them. Like John, Mike, Chris Puma, rest in peace. Like Eric and Carly are just the best human beings. Dad, also, who's their new drummer, Kenny, their old drummer. So yeah, just so much love there between the bands.
Right.
Billy Club played with them in a tiny room in the Bronx. They wanted to do all 5 boroughs.
Oh, I remember that.
That was Alfie's, which is a tiny bar. They're closed now, but it's a tiny bar down in Throgs Neck. And imagine Candiria and Billy Club in a place probably the size of the bathroom at the Bowery Electric.
Wow.
Now, Carly asked us to play that show too, but by then we were broken up, and I raised that band that it's not going to play again. And it was hard to say no to him. I get to say no all the time to promoters, which sucks. But to say no to him when he asked really fucking stung the heart there. So
here's Pot Baldwin asks, why do you think there's a wider interest in your bands among younger kids today than 25 years ago? I don't know if that's
think the internet comes into play here.
Definitely the internet.
People get exposed to our bands for how many, if it's Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and they're like, holy shit, I miss this. I wasn't around when these guys were around, and this is fucking awesome stuff. Now, Irate in particular, because B.C.S. is still a band, still doing what they are doing. But I'm surprised, man. We're bigger than ever. Like, the life of the band has been incredibly rich, and new kids. It's all new kids keeping us alive.
Yeah.
Like we started selling merch again like 2 years ago, and the numbers we did were what? Like, are you serious? People still care that much about this band? But they do, and it's a testament to our music because we wrote real life shit that resonated with kids that took it to heart. That were like, hey, I've experienced this. Thank you for speaking on that. I have people from prisons that write me letters. Your music has gotten me through. Thank you for that. It's such a beautiful and amazing thing.
Music is
the heights.
Yeah. And we had with Billy Club, we stopped playing for years. We stopped in 2010, started playing again in 2016, and we had a bunch of kids. We had the old man moment where we had a bunch of kids coming up to us. Oh, I was too young to see you back then. And now I'm finally old enough that I get to see you guys. And I'm like, we're old.
Yeah.
But
shout out
to a lot of moments like that, which is crazy too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for saying so, May. That's very nice of you.
So you know what? While we're here, let's talk about what's happening now. Let's be in the present. Let's look down the road. Let's Gary, let's start with you. Anything on the agenda?
So Billy Club is still on hiatus, quote unquote. Our guitar player Malone is still dealing with some health issues, so we haven't really been able to do anything. I do an occasional podcast called the Upgrade Podcast, which I do with Len Carmichael, who many of you know from Landmine Studios. And it's time to announce a little something. I'm working with a new band. Martin from Billy Club has been working with a band called Brass Knuckle Brigade, and they had some shuffling of the lineup, and this is the first announcement of it. I am now playing guitar for Brass Knuckle Brigade, and I am not alone. The other guitar player actually will be Jay Vibez, son of Phil Vibez. So the two of us will be joining Brass Knuckle Brigade. We're going to record in mid-June, try to get it out right away, and then we're going to start playing some shows.
That's awesome.
I gotta say, I've heard some shit, and it's going to be dope as fuck. So shout out to Brass Knuckle Brigade, man.
Can't wait.
How old is in the house? Thank you, Jay. Love you, son.
Jay Vibez?
Yes, sir. There he is.
How old is Jay now?
28. I'm an old bastard. So
28.
Yeah, Jay's 28, man. He's been in the scene for a long time. It was basically like seeing myself live again He done all the things I've done, and it's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
And I should mention, by the way, and Drew, you get on this too. There's going to be we've done some stuff, and by we, all three of us, because Drew, you're up there too. We've done some stuff with the Bronx Historical Society.
That's right.
The Uptown Rumble, heavy music in the Bronx is the thing that we're working on. There's a bunch of interviews that are up on YouTube. If you search Uptown Rumble, you'll find it with me, with Billy Club, with Irate, with a lot of our friends. Drew Stone is on there, another Bronx native, which I didn't know until recently, and that kind of blew my mind.
Totally. Fact. Yep.
And a lot of our friends, the Go to Mentis guys, Gigi and Jose from Proof of Purchase, many people are on there. And, what's that?
Blackout.
Lenny's on there. The Fahrenheit guys are on there. A lot of other people, so many, and the list keeps growing. And since I saw G-Man was in the chat earlier, my brother G-Man, he's supposed to do something with them as well because he's from Co-op City. So we have an interview actually that's going to go up at the end of this week that is actually Phil and I and Jay Vibez all talking about the history between our two bands and also Jay growing up around us and what he's picked up just learning from us and learning from especially taking guitar lessons from Nando Redrum.
Yeah.
From Irate. So that's going up, I believe, on Friday. So that's something to look out for. And if you're into what we do, our bands, Drew's history as well, we're all on there talking about how we grew up and our relationship with the Bronx and with heavy music and how, our experiences. So there's a lot of great stuff on there from a lot of great bands, and the list keeps growing. So I'm very happy to be a part of that, and we all are. And definitely go and check it out.
Tremendous. Hey, I want to shout out Cuz.
Cuz
stopping by.
Love you, Cuz. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Can I just say something about him? He has been kind to our bands for
sure
years. He's always looked out for us. I can't say enough good things about that man. I love you to death, Joe. You know that.
He's given Billy Club many opportunities over the years. And
he's always angry at me for not putting Irate in the B&B Bowl. Sorry. But I love you, bro, and you know that. So shout out to you.
You know what? You know who we got to shout out? Let's shout out this guy right here. Boom.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Sal.
My bro.
Yeah.
Sworn enemy, man.
Stand up, dude.
All the things they've done as a representative band of Castle are legendary. From Ozfest to everything that you could possibly ever want to do, they did it. And they did it with pride, and they did it hard as fuck.
And they're still doing it.
And they're still doing it. So respect to Sal, respect to Lorenzo, and all the new guys in the band, or the newer guys in the band. But, I go back to the classic lineup because those are my brothers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. And they did a lot of great things and represented our family like no other. So
I love this one. Phil. What's going on here?
Yeah, CBGB's broken leg, 2003. Man, I mangled my leg in an accident in Black Ice and in Riverdale, and we had a bunch of shows booked, and we were like, "Yo, we're not fronting on these shows. We're gonna fucking get up and we're gonna prop you up on your crutches, and you're gonna fucking sing." So that's what I did, man. We toughed it out, and we. Look at that. That shit is a great action shot right there, man.
I love it. It's a really good shot.
And what did we say? That was opening for Nuclear Assault?
That was Nuclear Assault.
Yeah. So you also have in the front with the white shirt, that's Jay Rate, the old bass player of Irate.
That's right.
And right behind him is Chris B from Everybody Gets Hurt.
That's right.
Wow.
Two legends in their own right.
So it's always a family affair.
Yeah.
That's a great shot, man. Good stuff. Let me see what else we got. What else do we got while we're yes, Gary G, Team Bronx, absolutely, man.
I'll tell you a quick G-Man story. We played Eberfest. Billy Club Sandwich played Eberfest in 2017, and Harley Flanagan was on, and G-Man was playing for Harley, and I had a conversation with him. G-Man back in 91 used to play for a metal band called Smokescreen.
Wow.
And when I was doing college radio, we booked a show in the cafeteria of the college of Lehman College in the Bronx, and Smokescreen was on that show. And somehow, randomly on the internet in the past couple of years, I found out that G-Man played drums for Smokescreen. And I was like, I got to talk to this dude. So we end up talking at Eperfest, and I'm like, you remember playing a show in Lehman College in like 91? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I booked that show. And here it is. We're hanging out in Belgium at this big festival, and here's just two dudes in the Bronx shooting the shit. Is such a crazy moment.
Yeah,
but it was awesome. Much love to G-Man, always.
Drew, we were part of such legendary shit, bro, and we know such amazing people. We're so blessed, bro. I can't say enough about that. You know, and these are friendships that have been fostered and preserved for 30, 35 years, whatever it is. So we're grateful, man. We're around a bunch of awesome people.
Yep.
So that is Irate recording Burden of a Crumbling Society, 1997. And that in the background in the middle is John Christoph, who recorded all of Irate's material. All our albums were done with him. And he was the sixth member of the band for sure. So shout out to John Christoph, who is a major part of Irate's history.
That's awesome. That's great.
Lake Mahopac, New York.
There you go.
And to tie it in with the theme, by the way, just I don't know. Of course, we'll never know how things would have turned out otherwise. But because of Castle Heights and because of the stuff that Kevin and John the Doorman and Frank always did for us, that really helped us elevate to another level. And we have them to thank for so much of the success that we've had over the years.
And that's why we're glad
a lot of the other bands too.
Story, you know, it's an important story to tell. So, Drew, respect to you for finally
thank you
recognizing not finally recognize that, but for someone finally recognizing that the story needed to be told.
Yeah,
we talked about and we're going to start wrapping it up, but we talked about when I was doing the New York Hardcore Chronicles film. Originally, the New York Hardcore Chronicles film conceptually was going to be like way longer. It was going to have a lot more episodes. It was going to be like, you know, it was later that I had to. It was going to be a documentary, and I had to wrestle it down. You know.
Yeah.
But one of the segments that I had sketched out and I was ready to start shooting was a segment called "The Age of Violence," which basically would address the whole Castle Heights era. Kind of an era that really hasn't had a great spotlight. It hasn't had a strong spotlight put on it.
Right.
And I challenge anybody out there who was a part of that era, to step up and document it properly. It deserves it.
The closest we had was the Frank Pavich documentary, the NYHC documentary that came out in the mid-90s. And even that, so much stuff happened after that, but that had a lot with 25 to Life and VOD and District 9. But those later 90s into the 2000s, which is really, the quote unquote Castle Heights era, I'm glad that you're shining a light on it. And I know a few people have talked about doing some stuff related to this, but nothing has ever really panned out. Because I know somebody was working on a book at one point, but that never really panned out. I would love to see more of that, more of a spotlight on it, because there's so much of it talking about how it affected us and our bands, but it affected the whole scene.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is Kevin is still in the business.
Yes, very much so.
He's managing Lucky 13 in Brooklyn.
Yep.
There you go. And speaking of which, Kevin Castle is managing Lucky 13, and on this date, I'm going to be a part of this as well. This is the Eddie for the Love of Eddie Sutton at at Lucky
Rest in
13.
peace, Eddie.
Rest in peace, Eddie. Now, Eddie was a staple at Castle also. Eddie
Yes.
used to come hang out, chill, have drinks, whatever. So he was definitely part of the movement, and he will be missed forever. What a stand-up, great guy.
Well, Eddie Sutton's a Queens guy, right? I mean, and some of those guys actually lived like more so like closer to Jackson Heights than Astoria. They were right on that kind of on that border.
On the borderline.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there you go. That said, I want to thank you guys for coming on. It was great chopping it up with you and bouncing the ball back and forth. Phil, anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
Absolutely. So just shout out to all the people that made Irate what it is today. I'm so humbled to be here 27 years later from the start of the band to now, having this discussion, reliving the good times, the epic times that we went through back then, especially at Castle Heights. Shout out to my brothers in Sworn, EGH, and Billy Club, because you guys are my heart and soul. And we did a lot of amazing things together, and I'm glad our story's being told. Shout out to my new band, Knights of the Black, which is coming out this year, which has Anando Redrun from Irate on lead guitar and my son, Jay Vibez, on lead guitar. So Jay Vibez is going to have a very busy year coming up for him in these two bands that he's joined, plus his own solo stuff. So lots of things going on. I'm on a monthly podcast called Guitar Picks and Horror Flicks. Actually, it's the other way around. Horror Flicks, and Guitar Picks, where we just discuss horror shit once a month. That's always fun. And my son is on that too. So I get to enjoy music with him and a podcast.
Hey, I want to come on your show and talk about it once. I want to be a guest and talk about horror, talk about my favorite horror film.
Dude, we'll chat about that and we'll get you on, man, for sure. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, Knights of the Black, it's coming to you in 2024. Look out for that. The album is called Hymns of the Blasphemous. And I get to finish my career with my son and my best friend. What more could you ask for?
Gary?
Just shout out to everybody that's supported us, our bands. Shout out to the four bands that we mentioned: Sworn Enemy, Irate, EGH, Billy Club. That's a family. We've been a family for a long time. Even in some cases before these bands existed, we've been family. So much love to all those guys. Much love to everybody that supported us, supported me with doing all the other music stuff that I've done. I did a count right before doing something with the Historical Society. I've performed with 20 different bands on stage. So
you whore.
Yes, I am a whore. What can I say? But Brass Knuckle Brigade will be number 21. So looking forward to doing stuff with them. Shout out to those guys, and shout out to everybody that we mentioned, all the great bands that we've worked with over the years, that we played with and traveled with all over the world. And to all of our fans worldwide who have supported us, thank you. And thanks to everybody for watching this. And thank you, Drew, for shining a light on this era and giving us a chance to really talk and shine a light on a lot of people that deserve it. Much appreciated.
It's my pleasure. It brings me joy. I hope to see you guys soon. If you're around, this Sunday's Rampage Fest, feel free to come on down,
All right.
All right. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Drew.
He's fucking awesome. Support.
Yes.
Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Take care. Well, there you have it. Another one in the books. The New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Nice dance we had today with our friends from Castle Heights. Thank you, Gary Muttley, and thank you, Phil Vibez. It was a really great show. And like we discussed, is that right, Darren? This show, Drew, was much better than the CBGB show that you did a few months ago. A lot more of an insight to the Castle Heights Club. Thank you, Gary and Phil, for the history lesson. Like I said, this was an important era in New York hardcore, and it really deserves a spotlight on it. A lot of great bands came out of there, and it was community and culture. Listen, this Wednesday we have a show this Wednesday. You know, we don't do as many shows as we used to on Wednesdays, but we got one coming up this Wednesday with Chris Enriquez. And then, of course, this Sunday, like I said before, is Rampage Fest. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Thanks again. Do good things and good things will come to you.
United in hate. When did we become a divided state? Don't hate me because I'm not like you. Don't hate me, it's just a point of view. When did we